ASU Uniben chapter. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, viewers.
I also have a legal practitioner just after Professor ESLA, Peter Ejofo. Thank you for coming on the program as well.
Thank you for having me on the program.
Let me start with you, Peter.
Nigerians.
Let me start with you, Peter. Let's first of all begin to look at, as I told my viewer earlier, the visit of President Macron of France to Nigeria. The man had been in town to primarily accomplish two things. One, talk about insecurity, and also find ways to get around the problem of insurgency, particularly in the northeastern part of Nigeria. What have been your thoughts in the last 2-3 days about that?
I think you have, by your introduction, limited the scope of the insurgency and security challenges. You have overlooked southern Cameroon. Cameroon is boiling now. And we know that Cameroon is a former colony of France.
Right.
And so they want to do everything to protect the interests of France there. So that is one of his missions.
But that was not stated.
It may not be stated, but it's on a diplomatic shuttle. He didn't know what
diplomatic shuttle.
Yes, when they come for such visits, they don't just come for nothing. They come for a particular purpose. What you see on the surface are different from what is underground. That is one truth. But let's acknowledge the fact that France has played a laudable role in the sub-Saharan Africa of recent, especially in Mali and other countries where you have insurgencies. They've been able to quell it. They intervene directly, and also in Central Africa. So their input and their assistance in Nigeria is not something we can overlook. In fact, it is long overdue. We need assistance from the external forces and countries to be able to quell this insurgency. You know how they have been able to quell insurgency in their own country. During the incident of death of about 17 persons, that Charlie Hebdo issue, and they were able to contain it. And they have been able to contain so many others. We need their experience, we need their expertise. And you should also know that France is an arms and ammunition manufacturing country. We need their assistance by all means. In fact, the going out for assistance is long overdue. We are at a point where if care is not taken, we'll become overwhelmed with the crisis.
Some persons say Nigerians, I'm sorry I had to bump in on you so you can find a way to expand the conversation a bit further. Yes. Some persons say that Nigeria had gone cap in hand, in a manner of speaking, to the French government to bring President Macron here, that we sold ourselves short. Do you find any truth in that?
No, I wouldn't agree with that. Nigeria is is the largest trading partner of France in Africa. The volume of trade between France and Nigeria is about 3.6 billion euro.
And that's significant.
That's significant. So that is a very good market for us. If you take what has happened between Nigeria and US, where US have to stop buying our oil and gas, you will not ignore France. Don't forget that there was a summit, one planet something summit in France, where our president visited, along with some governors and other government entourage. And there were negotiations and discussions. That is what culminated into the visit of Macron.
So it's been a long time coming.
Yes. And you must also acknowledge the fact that Macron is a beacon of hope for Nigerians, especially the youth.
Looking at his age, you mean?
Yes, given his age and what he has achieved so far. He has been in Nigeria. He has been able to change our narrative in terms of looking at, ordinarily if the president visits Nigeria, what he does is you go to an enclave in Aso Rock or somewhere, and then you organize the cultural troops to come and dance. He went to the African shrine, where nobody would ever thought about going. The first president to have visited there. How many governors in Nigeria have visited the African shrine? That shows that the way we treat what we have is painful. He said that in France, Fela is renowned He's well respected, just as the Jamaicans respect
Bob Marley.
Bob Marley in Jamaica. But do we have that? Do you know how many times, can you recall how many times Fela was incarcerated? His mother died for the cause. And today, somebody externally is coming to recognize what we ought to have recognized and built at the monument. If he had visited Albert Hall in London, nobody would raise an eyebrow. But it's opening our eyes. All we need to do is to put things in place, then try to combat the security.
So essentially, there's a lot of work to be done back at home first, you mean? That's what you're saying. We need to put our acts together at home.
So that we can attract tourists.
I'm going to get back to you in a bit, but let me come to Professor ESLA. The president of France has been here to talk about insecurity, talk about insurgency. He already talked about Cameroon, for instance, which in his words, it's boiling. Of course, the French government naturally would intervene in the overall interest of its former colony. Nigeria is an English-speaking country. We are not a Francophone country. In other words, we were never at any point a colony of France or the French government, as it were. How much of promise do you see in this visit by the French president?
Yes, you know, our people, we always look at the economy, the benefits they will get in terms of materials and finance. But just to tell us that the visit, like my co-discussant here has said, is purely a kind of, you know, diplomatic shuttle move. If you remember, Nigeria is almost at the center of many Francophone countries.
Right.
And if anything goes wrong with Nigeria, like we are observing that the level of internally displaced persons is on the rise in Nigeria, it's unlikely that any of the French or Francophone countries around us will be able to accommodate the population of persons from Nigeria. We were able to accommodate then Ghanaians. At the time, even a time still came when we now say Ghana must go, and they left, and they have gone better today. But it's unlikely that any other country, and so many of the international countries they have spotted this. And France, of course, France, of course, knows that they will have very, very big problems. Like he has said, you know, their investments are in their Francophone countries. Somebody told me a few days ago, I was in Benin Republic, and told me that if you post a letter now in Cotonou, for instance, if you first of all land in France,
even if the letter is supposed to go to Australia, for instance.
Yes. And so they are still holding grip. It is not like the Anglophone, the British, what they are doing to us here and all that. And you see, he came down. It's the interest of it. Remember when we had problem with Bakassi? You notice the country immediately what they did, how they came to that region to want to back Cameroon against Nigeria. When they even went to Hague, you know, there is assistance they render to Cameroonians. So the issue here is that Emmanuel Macron is in Nigeria does not mean that he has come here to help Nigeria. It is what you speak is, in this case, is less than what is not spoken. So it's to find out what is the real reason for coming. And if care is not taken, because our people are always into jamboree, they won't understand the reason for his coming. It's just to look closely. Look at between the membrane, the thin line, then you understand why Macron is here. It's for purely security. He has said that. He said also that France cannot help the problems of Africa. You remember, that is when he talked about in terms of economy and all of that. But he is purely here to want to nip insurgency in Nigeria or assist Nigeria with the problems of insurgency. So what he is here for is to try and see how they can curtail insurgency so there will be no spillover to Francophone countries. That is purely what he's doing. The other is trying to, why he's trying to look at his memories, he was doing his internship or thereabout
in Lagos in 2004.
Yes, he was there. They're asking him to give some of the old memories and all of that. I said no. What happens at the shrine dies with the shrine and all that. So that he was not. So which means he was a constant visitor.
While he was here.
While he was here there and all that. So there are memories that he has taken away from there. But then that is the country, like he has said, that we have. The scripture says he came to his people and his people understand him not. You understand? A prophet is not recognized in his own country. But just let me to announce to Nigerians that Buhari still has another award to give, Osimo's award to give.
Which is?
The visit of Macron to Nigeria, visit of Macron to African shrine, it means that they have to wake up Fela from the grave.
And honor him posthumously.
Yes, they need to honor him. Because it's very, very clear, he has sounded it very clear of the importance of the shrine and Fela. And of course, the music that Fela, the lyrics of his music, of course, you notice is that kind of, he's a human rights activist, and Macron appears to be tilted also in that direction. These are what he would have said. The same thing this man sang then is what is still reverberating in the country today. And he could be worried on that and all that. And then you think such man will not come and want to paint all those mess. He will not and all that. So that is
another issue we need to quickly address is the fact that when a president like Macron visits President Muhammadu Buhari, naturally there will be room for negotiations. Whether you're going to call it closed-door meeting or whatever it's called, there will be that point where both leaders sit down and discuss salient issues.
Yes.
There will be negotiations.
Yes.
Some persons would say demands are made between both leaders on behalf of their respective countries.
Yes.
In such a scenario, how much of leverage does Nigeria have?
What leverage now? Who are the people that are discussing with Macron? How many of the team, the experts you have in the team, like we have said, are they able to spot the reasons for Macron coming? So how much can you really get from France when you don't understand the reasons for his coming? Of course, one expects that with the age of Buhari vis-a-vis that of Macron, it would have been father and son. And all that.
But does it work like that in international politics and diplomacy?
I'm coming now. He would have been able to bring that to bear and all of that. And then also exploit the relationship that Macron had been here in Nigeria. He knows Nigeria. For somebody to know so much about the shrine and all that, he should have been able to exploit that. But are they going to exploit that and all that? Would they not look at other primordial issues instead of looking at diplomatic relations? So that is what's unified.
Okay, let me allow you a chance to react to that, Barrister Ejo, for leverage for Nigeria, for instance, because in international politics as well as in diplomacy, it's about interest. Yeah, and there has to be the element of leverage in it. Do we have that in this conversation?
I think what has been made in terms of helping Nigeria to combat terrorism and insurgency in our country and within by an extension within the West African sub-region has been an ambiguous statement. There are no clear-cut statements so far on how they are going to assist Nigeria. Perhaps other negotiations and discussion have to go on before they come out to take a position on it. But there is this issue of $475 million US that the bilateral agreement that has been signed
between both countries.
Yes, and it is designed essentially to drive the development in mobility within the Lagos area, and they have identified certain corridors, bus corridors, where they could be able to make the development and create the roads for better access. I think the man is very, very conversant with Nigeria to an extent. He has been able to identify also issues of water supply in Kano, and money is being expended in that direction through their development, foreign development agency. He has also identified the issue of restoration of the forest in Ogun State and reclamation of degraded arable areas in Ogun State. about 200 million is being embarked, 200 million US dollars. And in Kano, it's about 75 million US dollars. So these are agreements that comes with the visit of the president. But he has also identified so many other issues like the cultural program. They want to promote French language. And he has come to open a French cultural center, a complex in Nigeria. And that complex, I understand, have 10 other branches across Nigeria, in the southeast, south, north, and west. So they come to promote their culture and their language. That has been their pattern, pre-colonial and colonial days and post-colonial. That has been their pattern. So they want to promote their culture. They want to unify the West African sub-region to speak more of French and do things more like French people. That is what they did.
Is that imperialist in nature?
It is. It is a continuation. You cannot rule it out. And you cannot rule out the fact also that is the trend also with the United Kingdom, especially England. That has been their trend. So subtly they come with one thing or the other, but you know they are trying to have a stronghold in Nigeria. If all things were equal and Nigerians are doing things that they are supposed to be doing at the right time, do we really need them to come and begin to tell us how to create the roads so that we can have better access within Lagos? Or do we need anybody to come and tell you that your arable land are becoming degraded? It's because we are not living up to expectation. Do we need anybody to tell us that there is water shortage in Kano City? But they are coming with those assistance. We cannot reject it. That, in a way, is a very good...
when a country like France pushes its interest like this within Nigeria,
yes.
Does that in any way put us at loggerheads with England, former colonial masters?
Let me go further to tell you that France has, according to the statement of the ambassador, Nigerian ambassador to France, Modukbe Irele, she said that in Nigeria you have about 120 French companies. That's
a lot of companies.
Yes. French is coming. You know, whatever happens in terms of terrorism and insurgency is bound to affect France. They are coming also to protect their business. And they are also thinking about possibilities of expanding business. There have been forums. There was one in 2016, Discover Nigeria, which the Elumelu Foundation and some French businessmen organized in France. And when he came to Nigeria, he also had interaction with some of our businessmen too. So you can see that he is coming for economic diplomacy. So see how they can push France and maybe gain more stronghold and maybe continue to sustain this balance of being the highest business country with Nigeria, doing business with Nigeria. Those are the things I think he has come for. He has not really come, like Prof said, he has not really come to help us so much. We have to be wise so that we can leverage on his visit.
To what extent does the Nigerian government even understand that reality, that the French government is not here to hand us a pack of lunch?
They are not going to give you just a cake to eat and then you go. You have to work for something. You negotiate, like he was saying. You said what is the balance of the negotiation,
yes.
What's our strength against theirs. The strength is what we supply. We supply raw materials, raw food, crude oil. We don't process. But we need France to bring in companies that can do this processing. If we can do the negotiations and be able to attract some of them, that will be helpful to Nigeria. So that we do some kind of local content in what we export, so that we can also make some money. You understand? Even if we export finished product, there's nothing wrong with that. We really have to do so much. But beyond that, I want to look at this is also as a kind of succor to the Nigerian youth. They have hope that a young person can aspire and get there. And you know this last bill about young person
not too young to run.
Not young to rule that the president signed into an act. It's also in that regard. I think the Nigerian youth will be bold enough to say, look, this is my mentor. If we can find one in Nigeria, I can find one in France. That something like this could happen, and it could happen. We need the youth to change this country. The way things are going, the elders are failing if they have not failed.
But some persons have also said it's not about age, it's about capacity to deliver.
It's about age. Look at the countries we are talking about now. Look at Canada.
So narrative is changing.
Yes. Look at Canada. Look at France.
Sorry, let me come to Prof. You want to react to that quickly?
Yes, no, at a particular age, seniority sets in now. You know, if you plot the graph of functionality of a man, a time comes you hit the peak and it begins to come down. There's no two way about it. That we have geriatrics ruling us continuously and all of that. And that is, that you may think this is why we are where we are and all of that. Somebody who is young with vibrant ideas and all of that takes a country like this, will take us somewhere.
But how do we balance that with the Donald Trump, who has crossed the 70 mark and still doing so much work with the economy?
Okay, well, I'm sure that they saw Donald Trump as a businessman. His businesses were still thriving, doing well, and true. All of that. So that is a very, you know, with all of this physiologically and all that, you balance so many of these things. At his own age, if care is not taken, he has not peaked and all that. Americans are good and all that. So they may have studied him. So the issue is that, you know what, if I was working in these diplomatic areas and all that, I will look at the country now. Look at it. Remember Michelin is a French company. Elf and so many other. Total. These are all
Air France.
Yeah, they are Air French companies. But they have all collapsed. They went under and all that. And then, do you not think that in these very boiling days of Nigeria, that a country will want to come and establish any business? So that is enough to inform us that why this man has come here not to come, you know, help Nigeria or establish any business or otherwise, but that there are more that meet the eye than we see. Do you understand? And so, for me, I think, like he has said, you know, at that he's here for the insecurity reasons in Nigeria. That is what he wants. And he's doing that just because of the Francophone countries around him. Because, like I said, there's no country that can contain the population if everybody here becomes internally displaced. And so they want to help to stop that so that the rest Francophone countries around them.
So do you see these visits changing that tide for the better? I mean, the insurgency and insecurity.
It depends. It depends. I'm sure that Macron is also studying, knowing that, looking at those that he's talking to. Are those that he's talking to interested in stopping the insurgency in Nigeria? Do you actually think that Nigerians don't have the willpower to stop insurgency? For very long now, somebody has been crying, change the security chiefs, because they are not helping us in any way. Okay, now, after the recent killings in Plateau, has anybody been arrested now? Somebody accepted the responsibility for all that happened that day. Has anybody been arrested? So Macron and all these people, they are also reading. I'm sure that they are going to go above Nigeria to arrest this problem.
But I think, just to add to that, this is not the first time Nigeria will be talking about collaboration with other countries as regards insecurity, particularly in the Northeast. Britain had been approached. In fact, at the point where even told the US had sent men and equipment to the Northeast. But till today, one of the questions a lot of Nigerians still probably cannot find answers to is what happened to that understanding, as it were, that we had with the US government to fight insurgency in the Northeast there. So that creates basis for people to cast a shadow of doubt, as it were, as to whether the French will do any better.
Yes, let's look at it. Where does loyalty lies determines the functionality of the collaboration or the agreement or whatever that has been signed. Do you expect that Britain will do anything above the interest of Buhari as it is now? I don't think so. This man overly is in the UK, and then he's close to them. And we have also heard that these were the people who had, undercut the entire Nigeria or the southern Nigeria. So these people, for it, they will not action any collaboration. You see them on papers, and then you may not see any action. That is what the same thing. Look at, because the president had observed that yes, there's somebody else now in the saddle in the US, and that he could action some of what collaboration or statements that have been made, he had gone ahead to now go and pay millions of dollars down, you know, for an aircraft to fight insurgency. As it were, if you notice what so many persons in the National Assembly, it was like a bribe. You know, wanted to now, of course, stop them from coming over. What I'm saying here is that, is the Nigerian government sincere about the fight of insurgency? But the issue here for France might be different because of their interests.
And the Francophone countries, as you
yes,
said.
that is what I'm saying. It's because of the Francophone country. So they've done it in Mali. Remember that many of these persons, many of the insurgents that we are seeing here are not even from this country. The president himself has said many of them are from Libya and all that. Some have said they are from Mali and so many countries outside here. Remember that the G5 below the Sahel countries and all of that, where all these people are pouring in because, as it were, we have no border, we have nothing restricting anybody to around the northern borders of Nigeria and all of that. So the issue here is that France, I think, they have done it before in Mali. They can repeat it in Nigeria because of their own interests, not because of the interests of the Nigerian government. Because as we are saying, like what I'm saying, I'm not just talking from the, I'm saying, is Nigeria interested in stopping insurgency? Do they want to fight it? Or they are interested in another agenda? So many persons have said the interest here is the Fulani Jihad. And all of that. And so the interest, well, you tell me why the president is constructing a rail line from Kano to Niger. Of what economic importance? What is the...
We're going to talk about the economic importance of all of these things.
So,
but let's...
kind of is the interest. Their interest is in furthering the jihad and stopping.
No, there's no evidence to the issue of jihad because there's no evidence. There's no evidence as to jihad because what we understand is that the president, President Muhammadu Buhari, would even host the French president, is a step in the right direction as to countering insurgency. That's number one. And then number two, the issue of the fighter jets, the Tucano jets that you made allusion to a while ago, is also an initiative to ensure that the fight against insurgency is also boosted, even though we know there's so much of political coloration to that. But let me come to Barrister Ejiofor. Let's talk about the statement made by the French president when he said that France cannot help Africa solve its problems. Incidentally, Nigeria is an African country. Is that, does that dim our hope for life at the end of the tunnel?
Yes, it is like telling you the truth.
In your face?
Yes, it is the truth. No country can come and solve your problem. You have to solve your problem yourself. But along the line, you may get assisted if you merit it. Because at the point where you are given assistance and you begin to abuse it, like Britain and US, they'll begin to shift back. Is this the pattern of things? If the pattern of things seems to be strange to them, they will not give the necessary assistance anymore. So France could help us, and the statement they are making are equally correct. We have to be sincere with our the fight against terrorism, insurgency. You tackled him a few minutes ago about the direction when he was talking about jihadist tendencies or intents from what we see. You cannot rule out that possibility from the pattern of killings and from the expansionist tendencies. He spoke about issues pertaining to incursions into Jos town itself. My grandparents grew up in Jos. They lived in Jos. In fact, one of the wells dug by my grandfather is still being used in Jos today, in Barakin Ladi. So we are conversant. At a point, it might interest you that just like Kaduna, Jos was balkanized, it was divided into two at a point. up to today. They have even crossed beyond that point now, and they are now going right inside Jos. It is a terrible problem.
I can't pretend.
If it is not jihadists, then what do you call it?
I can't pretend. Maybe someday will find a name for it. But for today, I can't pretend not to talk about. I can't pretend not to talk about the borders. I mean, Professor Yasele here already alluded to our porous borders. Do we need the French government to help us take care of the borders? Because security experts would even tell you there's not much you can do if you don't get sincere with yourself and align yourself with the reality of addressing the porous borders that we have all across this country, particularly towards the north. How do we deal with that, first of all, before we move further?
One of the longest borders between two countries is between Canada and United States of America. Do you hear of any criminality there?
What do they do differently that we don't?
There is peace, there is security in their place. Everybody is secured. Government is working. Do you need to run from Canada to US? What are you looking for? Or do you need to run from US? Those who are migrating, crisscrossing, are Nigerians and other African countries, Asians, not the Americans. In fact, a lady that was jogging in Canada just last week found herself in Canada, found herself in United States of America, right? You know, it was just a common thing. What do you need in America that you don't have in Canada? We have to put our home, we have to put things right in Nigeria, that's all.
So the argument that insurgency is a domestic affair, and as such we don't need external intervention, do you support it?
Issue of terrorism, insurgency is not a domestic affair. Even given the intelligence report that there are some ISIS persons within Nigeria, can it now become a domestic affair? It has gone beyond the limit of containment within Nigeria. We need assistance, there is no doubt about it. And we are talking about, he just made reference to the West African sub-region, that we are surrounded by Francophone countries. Who can talk to those countries to really maybe watch over their borders? France can. France can do that effectively.
Professor Iyasale wants to weigh.
Yeah, I said the president himself said that those who are attacking Nigerians are non-Nigerians, that they are coming from.
Obviously, there's an infiltration.
And that is what he said. Now, it's not me that said it. He said it himself. That those, they are from Libya and all that. So many other persons are needed to. Some are from Senegal, some are from Mali and all that. So, I know that they will not mention Guinea because that is the Tajala. That is the origin of the...
There is Chad. There is Chad. There is Cameroon.
Chad and all that. So, the only country that can go above across these two countries is France. And so their interests they must protect. And so they will be able to meet this insurgency. And
in protecting their interests, I guess Nigeria does benefit.
Of course, yes. It depends on which group of Nigerians.
Negotiator.
Yeah, no, you know, there are some persons that are interested, that are happy with what is going on, with the killings in Nigeria. That is why, obviously, it has not been stopped.
Is that what you would?
If we are all on the same page, that we are not happy with what is going on, then you would have noticed. If I have the material, if I was in the military, if I was in decision making seats, I would have, of course, by now be able to do something by stopping this insurgency. At least I would have done something. My body language would have even shown. But what is going on right now is that appears you hear people killed in quantum, and somebody will tell you we're on top of the situation. Well, when will you be in the situation? You are continuously on top and nothing is happening.
Professor Yasale, yes. Barely 48 hours ago, I had a similar conversation with two gentlemen here.
Yes.
One of the questions I actually didn't ask them was, what's our history with keeping with agreements? Because when a president like this visits, one of the features will be signing of agreements. It's interesting, it's exciting to talk about all of the brilliant agreements, value-adding agreements that have been signed. What is your assessment of our history in keeping with agreements?
Maybe France. We want to keep an agreement, but the Nigerians are used to religion on many promises and all that. You know, it's unfortunate you are asking me as an ASU faithful this same question. We are highly responsible when it comes to keeping to agreements and all that. But let me tell you, what the driving force of keeping to the agreement between France and Nigeria will be interest. What I'm telling you, number one, is that if France was interested in economic growth in Nigeria, they would have come back to wake up Michelin plantations, Michelin tires, then industries like Total and all that.
Some people say events have overtaken that possibility.
Why will it? Why? The rubber is still there. Also, the river rubber estate is still there. You see out them everywhere. They're out there in the forest. Well, what has overtaken that? Is it that the world no more needs rubber? Is it that we no more run, the cars no more run on tires and all that? But they closed down because the climate in Nigeria was not conducive. So when then they now return back and you think that they are coming for economic reasons, it's just a house. That's the basic truth. So for we, what we are saying here is purely for security reasons, and the security reason is because of the Francophone countries. They are trying to protect their countries because, you know, you remember it was policy of assimilation that was used there. So they are still there in the runnings of so many of those countries in the West African sub-region. So not like you have the Anglophone and all that. It is not like that. So that is it.
Let me talk to you briefly, Ejiofor. Some persons have told me off camera that one of the things we're looking at right now is a situation where France, as a government, as a country, is coming back to Africa to once again put its foot down and remind Britain that they are more influential here in this part of the world than our former colonial masters. Where does that leave Nigeria ultimately? You
know, like we said earlier, we agree that the France is coming here to promote their common interest.
Which of course
it has to do also. It has to do also with their foreign direct investment inflow to Nigeria. It has to do with the existing companies they have, like the ambassador said. We have about 120 French companies or businesses
established in Nigeria.
Yes, and so they want to protect it. What my co-discussant is talking about, ELF closing up. You see, business is about profit. When a business, you look at the business as it's no longer profitable, like it was happening then, those companies within there, they were having issues, their oil wells were drying up, they couldn't invest more. Others were looking at other areas of investment where they can get quick profit. These 120 companies doing business in Nigeria are not here to favor us per se. They are here to do business and make profit. If the profits are not viable, they will leave. So the companies that are here right now are doing business and making profit. The ones that left felt that they could no longer run their business the way it should, and the profit that is coming is no longer sufficient for them to sustain their business. They had to leave. So it's about business interest. And the other ones that are coming are also looking at possibilities, what they could do. Just not that many are coming. But, you know, they are studying the more stable Nigerian environment is in terms of security, the better for Nigerians and also the better for the investors. They will not want to come and invest in a volatile environment because they are putting their money there. For their money to come there, then you have to assure them that security will be in place.
These visits, some would say it's epic, but whether you take that, I mean, you believe that or not, it's a point out of the fact that we probably should begin to have a second look at our foreign policy framework. What's your thoughts on that?
Yes, I must commend the Minister for Foreign Affairs for this visit. I also have to commend the ambassador, Nigerian ambassador to France, Bodupe Irele. I have to commend them because it takes a lot of discussions for a president to visit another country, and there are things involved. He has come with his luggage. This is what is given to us. He has talked about urban mobility development program in Lagos. He has talked about other things. He has visited and other things. He has talked about insurgency. That leaves us with some kind of hope. We cannot just be hearing about first-man killing, war here, communal clashes there, government embezzlement here. Let us hear something good for a while. The visit to me is like a balm. It is going to take us. It is also hope for the youth. I'm looking more at it, that the youth should be looking at Macron. The youth will be, I'm telling you with all sincerity, from 40 down should be looking at Macron. They should be ambitious enough to dare.
It's an embodiment of inspiration.
Yes, they should be ambitious enough to dare. If we have to save this country, I don't see the elders saving us. They are all fighting for their own private interest. They are all fighting personal wars. When you see these people say they want to form a party to defeat the incumbent president or do that, they've been doing it all these years. Where has it taken us? They should take the destiny of this nation in their hands, because the future belongs to them. They should dare. That's the truth. If they can dare to fight for these elders who get killed for fighting for elders and spilling their blood for nothing's sake, they should spill the blood for themselves. It is high time.
That's quite a deep one. Professor Yasele, let's talk about implementation. I mean, the man has been here, discussions have taken place, agreements have been signed. Going forward, how do we begin to implement? Because Nigeria has a role to play in implementation. A lot of the things, most of the things will be done back at home here by our own people, both those elected and those appointed. How do we approach implementation? Is there any hope that implementation will go through?
We hope that various agencies, institutions, and all of that are the corridors or boardrooms of discussion around it matter, and then they are taking records and all. So I hope that the Nigerian spirit, laissez-faire and all that, will not come to play here. Otherwise, what they should do now is that, okay, after taking records and all that, then retire back to your closets or to your offices, and then to look at them more intently, invite people. You see, countries and the latest system of administration is committee system. Set up committees over these matters that have been raised, and then discuss them again, and then profile a pathway to realizing and achieving the various promises that have been made by Macron. If you look at his visit to African Shrine, of course, it was epic, it was fantastic. You see many actors and actresses were present, even across the shores of this country. They were all there and all that. So now I expect that the Ministry of Tourism should take it from there. And then now at least we realize that African Shrine is a tourist center and then develop it as such.
You talked about committees.
Yes.
How about this obvious discomfort that people feel, or at least express, where they say we set up too many committees, we set up committees for almost every other thing? Doesn't that kind of create bottlenecks in the process?
Two heads are better than one, whether you like it.
So the more committees, the better?
Yes, you see, you are supposed to, people who are really conscientious, people who are really interested in bringing about development, like we do in the university. Everything, the university, for instance, run on committees. But of course, we are the repository of knowledge. One person cannot alone. And the researches are like that. For you to achieve anything, you have to bring it to a discussion table. Let other people also offer their own opinion. And all. Those are the ways it works. Not just only one man with a kind of fear. That is military. And it's undemocratic. So people should discuss matters, and that is the way things work. That's the only way we can be optimal in our decision making.
During these visits, of course, the president of France had been in Kigali before he came here with other heads of governments and presidents, including President Muhammadu Buhari. Across Africa, in Nigeria inclusive, he had met with even private sector people. I mean, those in the organized private sector. Is there also some hope for the organized private sector beyond those in government and the issue of counterinsurgency and insecurity generally?
I don't know the effort. You see, we have said it time and time over that nobody will do it for you. So if any private person is thinking that France will come and give him or her money here to improve his or her business, might be joking and all that. We have said before that nobody transfers technology or transfers anything.
It's not possible.
Yeah, many persons, many countries, they steal. That is what you see. That's what you see the Asians are doing, and that's why they are thriving.
So what we call the idea that the French government is giving about 500 billion naira to, I mean, for a cause they call digital Africa, for instance, where you even have somebody like Mr. Tony Elumelu and a few other private practitioners across the continent.
Yes, you'll be surprised that that money will not be given out
in cash.
Your other ideas will be tied to it at the end of the day on how. Is it not like the rail line that they have said China was going to come to construct in Nigeria, and where they were going to bring all their staff to come and do their workers will be here to come and do the work, not Nigerians and all that. At the end of the day, who is benefiting? You know, remember on bilateral agreement, even Nigeria is also funding some other countries across. You understand what I'm saying? Clearly, that is what it is. Nobody is going to come and give you money and say, okay, I'm investing this in your. No, it doesn't work like that. Nobody throws money around like
Barrister Ejiofor, you've made continuous reference to the idea that Mr. Macron is a beacon of hope for young people across this country.
Yes.
But have the youth developed capacity for leadership? Because it's one thing to win election. Ultimately, what will count is your capacity to deliver and provide real-time, value-adding, forward-looking leadership. Do we have that in front of us already?
Do you know the number of graduates that the Nigerian University churn out every year?
Yet we are told over half of these graduates are not employable.
But some are employable, aren't they? If that is so, where are the opportunities? They are few and far in between. Even when they advertise for job, recruitment into the Nigerian police, is the process free and fair? Where somebody with school cert will get employed, and somebody who has a graduate degree here will not be able to get the same job in Nigeria? This process is not free and fair. We begin to talk about federal character and other things. So it's painful. But I want to look at the visit as helpful in many regards. One, to look at the cultural aspect. Under that cultural aspect, he has already given his words that in 2020, Nigeria, there will be an African cultural season in France.
Yes.
2020. They are going to hold the summit where other African countries, including Nigeria, will be there. And he has also spoken about the Nollywood, that they want to invest in our Nollywood. They want to come into the Nollywood business. That is a big business in Nigeria. And when he was coming, he came with Abdulrahman Sissako from Mauritania. He came with Youssef Ndo, a musician from Senegal. These are world-renowned persons in their field of job. And so by bringing them and interacting with our actors and actresses and filmmakers, I think he has an objective. It is for Nigeria to actually utilize the opportunity. That is what counts.
Please, Professor Yasele, your last word before we tie it up on this conversation.
I expect this country to know that what you see is different from what the interest really is.
So ultimately, it's about interest.
Yes.
All right, our interest on the program today has been to discuss the issue in front of us, which is the visit of President Emmanuel Macron of France, what this means for bilateral collaboration between Nigeria and the French government. I've been talking with Professor Julius C. Esele. He's chairman, ASU Unibank chapter, and a legal practitioner. Just after him, Peter Ejiofor. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on the program. We do appreciate it, and we hope you have a great day ahead of you.
Thank you very much.
And that's it for this conversation. We'll be back shortly. Do stay with us.